Question 59 is another style of investment appraisal effectively, but this time just looking at expansion within the same business by entering into new markets with some existing products. So what we've been given here is an extract from the statement of profit or loss from this business for 2000X8 to 2000X9. In terms of what the question is actually asking us to do, they want us to identify which one of the following statements could not be realistically concluded from the extracts that have been provided. So the options are that they may have increased their sales volume and therefore revenue by reducing selling prices, that the distribution costs have increased in line with the increase in revenue, and the main reason for any fall in operating profit margin is the increase in admin expenses, which we would expect to remain relatively fixed, that the significant increase in distribution costs suggests that RT is supplying goods to new customers that are geographically further away, or that their increase in revenue has been achieved at the expense of profit margins. So in order to answer that, we need to go back really and have a bit more of a detailed look at these figures. So yes, we can see that revenue has increased and cost of sales have increased with that. What we don't know is whether they're relative to one another. So what we'll do is go and calculate the gross profit percentage for each of these years by taking the gross profit and dividing it by revenue. If we do that, we should find that we've got a gross profit percentage of 26% in 20X9, where it was 31% in 20X8. So there has been a fall in gross profit margin. Bear in mind though that gross profit is affected by both sales and purchases, so movements in sales or purchase prices could affect that. However, given that this is an existing product base, there's nothing to suggest that the price of our products will have changed, so it does seem possible that actually the expansion is at the cost of reducing sales prices. If we also go and calculate our operating profit margin by taking the operating profit divided by revenue, here we should find that we have 9% in 20X9 compared to 15% in 20X8. And again, this has fallen, but largely it's fallen in line with gross profit. So here we've got a fall of 5%. By the time we get down to the operating profit line, that's 6%, but the vast majority of that will be as a result of the fall in gross profit. The other thing to look at is there's mention in the answers about the distribution costs and whether they've gone up in line with revenue. So if we were to look at those distribution costs as a percentage of revenue, that might give us some indication of what's happened. And here, if we take the 168 divided by the revenue of 1430, we get a figure of 12%, where if we do the same for the previous year, we get a figure of 10%. Now, we would expect that if you're selling to customers in reasonably similar locations, that for each sale you make, the carriage costs are roughly the same, the distribution costs. So the fact that there is an increase in those would suggest that actually we have widened our field in terms of who we're selling to. So if we go back to these statements now, then we should be able to identify the one which is not particularly realistic, and it's this one here, that the distribution costs have increased in line with the increase in revenue. We've just proved that they haven't. So regardless of what the rest of that statement is, those distribution costs have actually increased more than revenue has. So in this case, that's the one which would not be a realistic conclusion.